Paul Cézanne was an artist who lived in France, and he painted during the 1800s. Cézanne was called a post-impressionist painter, which means he did everything different than the impressionist painters did before him. Cézanne focused on things like shapes and colors and true forms. Cézanne became most famous for his still life paintings, which are objects that are placed close together in an interesting way on a table. Cézanne's artwork influenced many artists to come. He influenced Cubism, which is the focus on shapes and forms, and Fauvism, which is the focus on unrealistic colors. Here are a few other still life paintings done by Paul Cézanne. I want you to notice how he blends his colors and how each object, each piece of fruit, has more than one color on it. And this shows shadows and that different fruits just have different types of colors. What inspired me to pick this as an artwork for us today is because last week in class I had some friends asking some very interesting questions about different types of apples and their colors. I found out that there are almost 10,000 different kinds of apples across the world. These two pictures just show a handful of the total amount of apples that there are all across the whole world. And I want you to notice the different shapes and the different color combinations. Every apple has its own type of color and shape and even texture. Some are more dull and some are more shiny. Some have a wider top or are more rounded or oval. And I want you to really pay attention with your artist eyes, and I'm really hoping this inspires your artwork today. Before we begin, I want you to take one last look of the different kinds of apples on this picture. Notice the shape, the color combinations, and then let's get started. Make sure you have a paper that is horizontal and either a black marker or a black crayon to draw with. We're going to start with the horizontal line through the middle of our paper and a curved line to make a bowl. And then put a small rectangle at the bottom of the bowl to make it look like the base. Make sure to make your bowl nice and big so you can fit lots of apples inside. Next, we're going to imagine if the apples are peeking out of the top of our bowl. So we're only going to be drawing semicircles because most of the apples, especially the ones that are first popping out of the bowl, are covered up by the bowl. So we have to imagine that there's even more apples down deep inside of the bowl. So you see how each time I add a new apple, I only add a part of that apple showing. So it looks like it's kind of overlapping and peeking out and that the bowl is filled to the brim with apples. I even added an apple on the side on the table next to my bowl of apples. Now we're going to add a horizontal line for our tabletop, just like Paul Cézanne did in his still life pictures that we looked at earlier. Make sure to draw it so that it looks like it's going behind the bowl of apples and so that the apples are setting on top of the table. Now it's time to add in those details. Start with a curved line and add a stem for each apple. They can all be facing different ways, so maybe curved lines are facing sideways or straight up and down. Some stems might even have a leaf shape on them. Now it's time to add some designs to the bowl. We can add patterns, we can add any type of designs you want. I'm doing two horizontal lines with some circles as one design. I did another line with some semicircles, and for the top edge, I'm doing a line with a zigzag in between. You can decorate your bowl however you want. Now it's time to start adding color to apples. So I'm going to be inspired by all those different pictures I saw of the different types of apples and pick out any color that I might want to use to color my apples. Some of the apples were just one color, and some of the apples had a few colors mixed together. Be inspired by all of those different types of apples that we looked at in the pictures earlier. You can can even think about adding texture to your apples. Some of the apples in the pictures had little dots on them, and some of them were dull and some of them were shiny. So maybe some of your apples you add a little shiny mark on them by not coloring a little area in to make it look like it's reflecting light. Make sure as you're coloring to take your time and go slow and careful. I put my video in time lapse, so it looks like I'm going a little quicker than what I actually am going. I really took my time coloring each apple carefully to keep those colors inside of that apple so that I didn't scribble outside of my lines. And I tried my best to make each apple different colors, different combinations of the colors, inspired by those posters and pictures that we saw at the beginning of the video. Try your best to make each one of your apples different too.